The E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber is a book all about entrepreneurship and what it really takes to run a small business. My name is Chet Morgan. This is another chapter by chapter where I go through your favorite books. Please remember to like the video, comment what book you want to see me do next below, and subscribe to the channel. So this book, The E-Myth Revisited, is an absolute must if you're going to be going into any sort of business. If you ever plan to own a business, if you currently own a business, whatever it may be, if you are an entrepreneur of any size, any scale, whatever it is, you need to read the book. I cannot stress this enough. This book is insanely packed with information. It's got great steps to follow for what you're doing. So chapter 1, Michael Gerber, he debunks the E-Myth. And I think the E-Myth is a really captivating title because it kind of sounds weird and you're like, what is that? But what the E-Myth stands for is the entrepreneurial myth. And this myth that he's talking about is kind of this idea that becoming an entrepreneur is like a romantic journey. That it's filled with bliss, and it's, you're owning your own thing, you're making your own money, you make more money than working for someone, and that it's all kind of up and up and up. And Gerber just goes right into saying that that is not true. And he explains it by going through and talking about the entrepreneurial seizure. And this is the moment when most people kind of decide that they want to open up their own business. And it usually happens when people are in a job or they have a very technical role, whether you are a construction worker or an accountant or, whatever it may be, and you're kind of working for the man. And, all of a sudden you have this realization where it's like, I know how to do what I'm doing. Why not open a business and I can make more money and I can, don't have to report to anyone. This is my deal. That's the entrepreneurial seizure. And this entrepreneurial seizure it happens to so many people, but if that's the case, it's not a good reason to start your own business. And Gerber talks about it throughout the rest of the book. But because you're technically good at whatever you're doing does not mean you should own a business that does that kind of skill, which he'll touch on. And at the end of each chapter, he goes through, it's kind of throughout the whole story, is he's talking with Sarah, who is an owner of a pie shop, a small business that's struggling. She doesn't know what to do. She got into the pie shop because she liked to bake pies. Why not open a pie shop when you do that? So he goes through, in each chapter of the book, he is helping her along this journey. So it kind of applies what he teaches. The second chapter is titled The Entrepreneur, the Manager, and the Technician. And these three roles are all within every business. And he explains kind of what each one, or like the definition of each one, is going to be. So your entrepreneur is going to be that big picture guy who sees the future, that, understands kind of this role of business and the role of business, no matter what that business is in. And then he's got the role of the manager. And this is a person that likes order, likes to certain things done a certain way. They are more so kind of people in the past, is how he explains it. They look in backwards, to report on numbers, to analyze things that have already happened and to make sure that they're happening effectively. And the technician is the person that if they want something done, they take care of it themselves, right? They know the nuts and bolts of whatever it is. In accounting, it's going to be the accountant that's actually writing out these numbers. Construction, it's the person with the hammer and the nail that's actually putting two pieces of wood together. They get the job done and they work hard when they do it. And whenever anyone opens a small business, they need to realize that each of these roles are going to need to be embodied within them, that they're kind of like our personality of sorts. And to find the right balance between each of these three is key to small business success. And Gerber kind of touches on how to do that, how to achieve balance within these three roles. And then Gerber goes through this sort of a business life cycle. And the first step of that cycle is titled, the third chapter, is infancy. And this is the technician's phase. So this is the very first start of any small business. And it's going to be, yourself working hard, right? You're obviously wearing all the hats. You got to open, you got to actually work the shifts. You need to, know what that business is doing and do it. And at this stage, the business is your life, right? You don't get to take the weekend off to, go on a trip or anything like that because you need to open the business. It does not operate if you're gone. And that's something that Gerber outlines specifically. The business and yourself in this stage are one and the same. The fourth chapter is the second stage of the cycle, and this is adolescence. And this is where your business gets to the stage where you can actually start hiring out some of your positions, right? So generally, the positions people hire first are the ones that they don't like to do. And a lot of small business owners or entrepreneurs, they hire out the books first, right? They want someone to take care of the numbers because that's kind of the most technical, role in a lot of businesses that no one knows how to do. So they hire that part out. And throughout this whole entire stage of adolescence, you see yourself giving up a lot and more power, right? So instead of staying till 10 o'clock every night, you're leaving a little bit earlier because you have these other people you can rely on. And not before long throughout this stage, these other people you're relying on start doing the hiring, they start doing the training, they start doing the packaging and the shipping, and they really take over at this level. But it's not all, rainbows and butterflies from there, because all of a sudden you start seeing things not being done to the standard that you set. You start getting packages back, upset customers, whatever it is. And it's kind of like the domino effect at this point, right? Because, one customer is mad, and then you start noticing more and more things that aren't being done to the standard that you set. So the bigger and the more trust you had in everyone during this stage can all come crashing down, and you're back at the first stage again, right? Where you take all the responsibility, you work all the hours, you do everything, and it's your business and yourself are one and the same. You can't leave without that business being open. And in the fifth chapter, Gerber touches on the comfort zone. This is one of my favorite parts of the book because being in your comfort zone is comfortable, right? You can just kind of passively live. Nothing's that good, nothing's that bad. It's just passive. Gerber outlines that you need to get out of your comfort zone, specifically and especially as an entrepreneur, someone who's owning this business, right? This kind of goes specifically toward these technicians that started their own business, right? That were fed up with the boss and they decided to do their own thing and realized, this is a lot more than just the trade that I was doing. So you need to learn how to get out of your comfort zone so you can see how all the different aspects of business work together and how you can, effectively run a small business. So the sixth chapter and the final stage of this business kind of life cycle is the maturity stage and the entrepreneurial perspective. A lot of businesses that are successful, a lot of mature companies, they don't necessarily go through this early stage adolescence and then maturity. They start at the very base of their operation as a mature company. They think they're big. Their whole entire strategy is to become big. It doesn't just accidentally happen, right? And there's this huge, comparison between this technician's perspective and an entrepreneurial perspective outlined in this chapter. And knowing the difference between the two is huge, right? A technician is here to get a piece of wood nailed to another piece of wood. It's a huge responsibility. It's super important. Obviously, the company could not do anything if that wasn't happening. But an entrepreneur does not look at the business that way, right? They're thinking big picture. In 10 years, we need X amount of houses built. And then they work back to see, how many people they need to actually get that taken care of. This entrepreneurial mindset, these real big time entrepreneurs, when they start a business, they think about how the business is going to run. They really focus on working on their business instead of working in their business, right? So a lot of people own their jobs. They have to be there. They have to work it because no one else is going to do it. But for a successful entrepreneur, they're building this system that's going to work whether they're there or not. And that's exactly what Gerber touches on here in the second part of the book. And the second part is titled The Turnkey Revolution, A New View of Business. So chapter 7 is titled The Turnkey Revolution. And Gerber explains that the success of a business is not determined on what that business sells, but how that business sells it. So it does not matter the product Obviously, there needs to be some sort of demand for any given product, but it's really how you deliver that product to your customers that matters. Your customer service, your facility, the way things are operated plays a huge role in that. He talks about McDonald's being the first company to really franchise successfully, and that McDonald's, there were other franchises, previous, but what McDonald's did was they developed this business system, right? How to take a hamburger from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, this, and this, right? So that anyone who bought into this franchise could have a set of directions right in front of them on how to make the burger, right? So you can go to New York or LA or, other countries even, and get the same exact burger that you would anywhere else. How franchising really looked before that was more of a trade name franchise, right? So you see this with car dealerships quite a bit. You see Ford car dealerships all over, but these are owned and operated by, just individuals. But you go into one, it's going to be different than you go in the other. The only similarity is the logo on the building. And what's really cool about this idea of franchising is that if you're going to franchise, you need to have everything that your business does written down step by step, right? You can't assume a step. You can't forget anything out. You need to know, how to do everything of your business, and it needs to be able to be put in a manual so that you can copy it, give it to someone that is going to franchise or own at another location. Now, most companies, most businesses, most small businesses aren't going to franchise, right? You have no interest in doing that. All you want to do is own your one store in your one town. But with everything through the lens of franchising, assuming you are going to do that, you're going to be able to plan out and assess. And we talk about it in the next few chapters as well, but you're going to know the ins and outs of your business. So you could give this book, the instruction manual for your company, to anyone and they could do it, which is a huge part of this book. And it's the huge part of this turnkey revolution. Chapter 8 is the franchise prototype. So this just works on, building your manual, your instruction book on how your business runs. And this is everything from how to clean the floor to how to package something to how to cook the meal. Whatever your business does, it's got everything within that. And that's your franchise prototype. Chapter 9 is working on your business. And this chapter deals with the fact that you are not your business. These are two completely separate entities. This is contrary to that early stage of business growth. When you first become an entrepreneur and you're doing everything, you can't leave without the business shutting down, kind of a thing. But the point of this chapter is really you are not your business. And so whether you're planning on buying a business or starting one from scratch, or you've owned one for 10 years, this needs to be your kind of shift of focus. Going forward, how long does it take for you to be able to put together a instruction book so that anyone could run your business? You basically want to make a manual that is foolproof, right? You could give it to, a monkey and they could run the business. Obviously, that's not the goal. That's not what you're trying to do. The way it seems so far, it seems like these systems are kind of corporate, that it's kind of just a machine that's working, and that small businesses are anything but that. But what we go through within this next part of the book is how, human interaction is really everything within business. And that, yes, you're building systems and, writing everything down, having certain ways to do things, but the humans are really what are going to make your business any successful at all. Part 3 is building a business that works. And chapter 10 is the business development process. And the business development process is comprised of 3 parts, and they're innovation, quantification, and orchestration. So the first part, innovation, right? You need to develop your own way of doing things, your own way of making that burger, your own way of whatever it may be. It's going to be unique to the entrepreneur in this case, but it takes time to kind of develop what you're going to be doing. And the second part is quantification. So once you understand what you're going to do, or how you're going to do it, quantifying it. And Gerber gives like sales as an example for this part, and quantifying, what you're saying to customers. How many sales you make in the morning versus at night, how many sales you make on a Tuesday versus a Wednesday, how many sales you make wearing a brown suit versus a blue suit. The more you can quantify things, the more you're going to get a numbers idea of what works and what doesn't work. And then nothing works without orchestrating it. So once you understand what's working and what doesn't based on the numbers, you need to be able to apply this over and over and over again, as if you were going to set up something to franchise, right? It needs to work on the 5,000th time as it did on the first. And 11 is the business development program. So this just kind of outlines these next few chapters that go through this whole entire program. Chapter 12 is the first step of the program, which is your primary aim. And this really has to do with yourself. What is your goal? What do you want the business to do? What do you want your life to look like in 10 years, in 15 years, in 30 years? Do you want this to be something that passes down to your kids? Do you want something to build in 12 years and then sell? You need to understand what your goal is, what your long-term goal is, because if you don't know what that end game is, really, how are you supposed to work towards anything? You're just kind of running that day-to-day life, whereas true entrepreneurs that work on it are going to know what a certain goal is and then work to achieve that goal. And that's the whole idea behind your primary aim. Chapter 13 is your strategic objective. And this works directly off that first step, right? These are the steps you are going to take to achieve whatever your primary aim is, whatever your goal is. What has to happen between now and tomorrow in order to get the ball, moving that way? And what has to happen, from today until 10 years, 12 years, whatever it may be. You need to understand your primary aim so you can then develop a process to get there. Chapter 14 is your organizational strategy. This chapter really stood out to me because I think a lot of small businesses think of themselves just as that, a small business. And what this chapter touches on in this step really is treating it like it's a big organization. So you start by having an org chart, a whole entire hierarchy of each position, and then listed next to that position is what roles they're responsible for. And when you are in your very beginning stages of any small business, it's probably going to be your name next to each one of those roles. But then the more you work and the more you develop a whole entire set of roles and responsibilities for each position, you can then hire that position out. So you can, show someone, this is exactly what we do here. Here's your responsibilities. Here's what you're going to do. And then you move to focus on that next role. But without an organizational chart, you can't really develop certain responsibilities for jobs that maybe you didn't even think your business had. So that's just all about your organization. You need to be able to set up a chart so you can have the roles and responsibilities, and then you can start to hire employees for those. Chapter 15 is your management strategy. And this chapter focused specifically on that book of instructions, basically for your book. If a manager were to pick up the book, they'd be able to read through it, know everything about your business, exactly how you get from A to B, how you cook the burger. But I mean, even before that, how you order the ingredients, where you store the ingredients, how to cook the burger, how you plate the burger. So it's step by step. It's literally anyone could pick it up, read it, and run your business. And chapter 16 is your people strategy. And this is all about how you get other people, future employees, to come work for you. I think that specifically working for a small business, an employee comes in, or a potential employee, it's going to be pretty intimidating to look at a book and to see, oh, wow, this guy is full of rules. This guy just, points his finger and goes. But this really focuses on that idea from How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, where he goes through, people just want to feel important. And that's, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner with people under you, you need to understand that more than a lot of people, right? You need to understand that they want to feel important. You have to, it's your duty. It's your duty to make them feel important. And there's a handful of different, strategies and other things you can do to be a good employer. But I mean, it's no surprise that without people working on the front lines, whatever that may be, whether it's, your line cook or your packager or your house cleaning staff, the business does not run without them. And that's extremely important to remind them that that is the case. And chapter 17 is your marketing strategy. I thought this chapter really stood out because I think a lot of small businesses neglect it. They advertise, they do kind of just comfortable advertising. They'll post things on social media, they'll get an ad in the paper. They do things that, you just are supposed to do as a business owner. They're just kind of inherent, I guess, maybe obvious things you could think of. And that, I don't think it's any surprise that we understand that big brands like Pepsi and McDonald's and all this do, thousands of dollars worth of research on what colors work best, all the psychology behind selling, and, to develop an ad. And we think that, that's because they're big. I'm a small business. Small businesses just do this, this, and that. But that's not the case. I mean, as a small business, you still need to understand your consumer base, your target market. You need to understand what they like, what they don't like. When they walk in, customers are hyper sensitive to everything, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. The floor, the smell in the air, what the employees are wearing, how they greet you. And all these things, reflect directly on people's preferences. I mean, your target market generally has a group of these preferences, and it's your duty, it's your obligation as an entrepreneur to understand that, no matter how big or how small your company is. And then chapter 18 is your system strategy. So this ties the whole entire book together. This explains that a business is really a set of systems, that the systems must be brought together to work together. A business is a well-oiled machine. You can come and you can go, but that machine, squirrel just ran by my window. You can come and you can go, but that system is always going to work once you've developed it. You need your marketing, you need your people strategy, you need all these things that he talks about in the book in order for it to run. And so it's really important to remember that, yes, you might like baking pies, but owning a bakery is very, very different. Owning a bakery looks like, how do I develop a set of systems to bake a pie? How do I set up a set of systems to serve a customer? How do I, set up a system to ship pies out? How do I set up the system to order ingredients for the pies? That is the role of the business owner. And then the 19th chapter is just a letter to Sarah. So Sarah was the individual who Gerber takes us through, just how he helped Sarah that owns Sarah's Pies or whatever it was. But he reminds us that, you need to get out of your comfort zone, whether you are just starting a business, which in itself is stepping out of your comfort zone. But understand that it's not the technical work that you're going to be focusing on as a business owner. It is way more zoomed out than that. And it's really about teaching, it's about learning, and it's really about developing a system that's always going to work, whether you are there or you are, on vacation in the Bahamas sipping margaritas. That bad boy is going to work. That's Micheal Gerber's E-Myth Revisited. Seriously, it's a book that anyone who's trying to open a business, anyone who owns a business, it's probably going to be bought and given to my mother and father who own a bar. So it's that special to me. I think that anyone needs to read this book, and I will sit on top of my roof tonight and scream it out into the street, because that is how important it is to read this book. Guys, my name is Chet Morgan. If you've watched this long, I definitely appreciate you. Please like the video, comment what book you want to see me do next, and like the video. I'll see you guys on the flip side later.